featuring, of course, the Mud Bog Racers and the Monster Trucks in a Mud Bog and Monster Truck Spectacular, all brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks. I'm Bret Kepner, along with Shelly Herman. We'll be bringing you the action with one of the single wildest events in the history of the association. Every single killer in the world is here, Shelly.
Tom Martin's here, Clay Lampley, everybody that you've come to know throughout the season, and they're out to see who's number one.
You know, almost half of our field of Supermodified mud racers are supercharged. This will be one of the most powerful events ever on a 90-foot bog, and by popular demand, even though the USHRA Association was thinking of canceling the class, we've got the unlimited mud racers back.
And I'm glad to see them back, too, because it brings a whole different element to the sport, so you can really see how this mud can be used in a couple different ways.
That's true. It'll be a unique battle with two of the most popular classes in the sport. Plus, at the championship monster truck racing program, one of the biggest Chevrolets ever is here. Jerry Richmond and Barefoot.
Barefoot is here, and I was looking at the car a little bit earlier, and I think we got something special in store this evening.
Jerry will be out to win it all for the Chevy fans. And like I said, we'll be back with the start of Monster Truck Championship action here at Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio. Brought to you by today's Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio. And this is Bret Kepner along with Shelly Herman with the USHRA Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Spectacular, all brought to you by today's Chevy Trucks. We're ready to kick things off in the Monster Truck segment of this particular event. This is Jake Heinke, the Aces High Chevy El Camino. This is an elapsed time competition in Heinke's 16,000-pound supercharged small block Chevy-powered El Camino. Takes a hard landing after the first machine to hit the cars definitely gets airborne. Now he lines up a straight turn and hits the second set of machines. Again, huge wheel stand into the air. He lands and crosses that orange pylon that you see that marks the finish line. Now we'll get an elapsed time from Heinke. It'll be a side-by-side battle between this Pennsylvania Chevy El Camino, the Aces High machine, and the machine you see now pulling to the starting line, Gary Bauer and the Lone Ranger. The quickest elapsed time between these two trucks in a special Ford versus Chevrolet Grudge match will return to take on the king of the Chevrolet monster trucks, Jerry Richmond in Barefoot. Well, here on the slow motion replay, Shelly, you can see Jake Heinke's qualifying run. And man, he put that thing up, but you'll notice the rear wheels never left the ground. He was still able to apply power even with the front end up.
But look at that bounce that he took, too, when he was coming off.
Tell you, that is an amazing truck. Like I said, a supercharged small block Chevy engine. It's only 350 cubic inches. Tremendous piece of equipment. The elapsed time, 22.60 seconds. That's good enough to take the #1 spot, obviously. Bauer awaiting the start signal from event director Jim Harris of the USHRA Association. Now there's the flag, and Bauer, that's a very, very slow start. He hits the first set of cars, gets a lot of air, but still doesn't seem to have the forward momentum he's going to need to even come close to threatening Jerry Janke. Bauer makes the U-turn in fine fashion, swings around, and now lines up for the hit on the last set of cars. 22.60 seconds the mark to beat, but he is taking his time, Shelly Herman.
He seems to be getting a slow start, but he's lining up the cars real well, too, so at least he won't be disqualified for any kind of technical reason.
But he'll still be way off the mark needed to beat Jake Heinke. He finally hits the finish line area. On Gary Bauer's qualifying run, the machine never did leave the starting line with any kind of serious horsepower. In fact, he took his time lining himself up on that first set of cars. He got the machine up in the air, but even so, it almost bogged the motor with the machine halfway up on the cars. When he came down, it was again with very, very little power in comparison to what the Lone Ranger supercharged Ford is capable of producing. His elapsed time, 25.2 seconds, 3 seconds off the pace he needed to move into the final round against Barefoot. But now, for a single run around these cars, let's see what Jerry Richmond and the king of the Chevrolets, Barefoot, can put down on this 185-foot course. The supercharged, fuel-injected, methanol-burning Chevrolet rat motor in this truck is one of the strongest in monster truck racing. As if you couldn't tell by that kind of tire-spinning start. Hitting the cars, tremendous airborne launch, clearing all 4 of the cars on the floor, now making his swing around. The start, Shelly, wasn't nearly as good as it should have been.
It almost looked like a false start there. It seemed to start off a little slow, and then he built up the momentum.
I think the problem was that when he originally nailed the throttle, the tires were on the concrete floor here in the Riverfront Coliseum, still bouncing all over the place on the landing, and he will coast across. And I don't know if the last time will be on par with Jake Heinke, but remember, the winners will go side by side. Barefoot will be taking on Aces High in a side-by-side battle. Jerry Richmond leaves the starting line. You could see the tires spin, forcing him to get out of the throttle because of the concrete floor here at Riverfront Coliseum. But man, when he hits those car Shellys, he was in the air.
He's coming down on those tires. You know, those tires only have 10 pounds of pressure in them each. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It shows. And a 23.2 second elapsed time, interestingly, is slower than Jerry Janke. So that will set up the championship final between the Aces High Chevy El Camino of Jake Heinke and the infamous Barefoot Chevrolet with Jerry Richmond at the wheel. We'll be back with more championship action, including Unlimited and Supermodified. Hoffman Association Monster Truck and Mud Bog Spectacular continues, all brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevrolet trucks. And the man on the line, Shelly Herman, is without a doubt the young wolf of this battle.
It's Tom Meents, and he's certainly one of the big competitors in this Tournament of Champions tonight.
He's been battling the defending world champion in this class, Tom Martin, with a nearly identical machine, and earlier we had a chance to talk to Tom. As well as this driver's nickname, Hollywood, when it went upside down at the U.S. Association National Championship event at Pittsburgh. And Tom, I know that incident has to still be going through your head, but there's no question that the U.S. Association safety rules made this machine come back the following week.
Yes, it certainly did. Every time I get in the machine, I think of the wreck, but I always know they have such good safety rules, and there's really no problem with safety.
Well, you were able to step right out of the car at that event, wave to the crowd. You really weren't even touched.
No, I didn't even have any bruises, bumps, or sores the next day.
Well, since then, this machine has gone on now into a battle for the World Championship points chase with Tom Martin, the current champion, and it's become pretty heated, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a few really fast cars here tonight, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there's no question this will be a killer event. The question, I guess, most fans would want to know is, who do you shoot for when you come to these things? Is there any one guy that you'd really like to knock down?
Yeah, Tom Martin.
I guess along with everybody else, you want the world champ. The question is this machine going to continue getting more and more powerful? You're already running elapsed times now that are near records.
Yeah, we every week we work on speed. The more speed we can get out of it, the better we'll do.
This incredible 1,500 horsepower supercharged fuel-injected Chevrolet is one of the most powerful in the business. And Shelly Herman, with Tom Meents being the first man on what is going to be an incredibly fast pit as far as the drivers are concerned, we may see a 1-second elapsed time for the 90-foot distance that we're dealing with. There's never been a driver under 2 seconds flat in 90 feet of the U.S. Hobbit Association mud.
Well, he's surely going to give the other guys a real race for their money. He's going to set a precedent here.
Unbelievable run, but something happens. A beautiful starting line launch, and that is turbo engine damage. On the replay, that launch was absolutely astounding. You couldn't ask for a more perfect run, but right there, the splash you see is because the motor went away and the machine lost its forward momentum. The front end actually came down into the mud, and there you see it's flat out of power. You can see the cylinders missing. That was something serious in the engine. What a disappointment, Shelly. The distance 85 feet 6 inches is not going to do him any good in this battle. In this sport. The funny car style chassis, the fiberglass body, a big block fuel-injected methanol burning Chevy engine, and nitrous oxide injection.
Well, this 28-year-old is one of the few drivers here who isn't a full-time mechanic. He is in the tree and landscaping business. Has only been racing for about 2 years now. It's
kind of unusual, wouldn't you think? A guy who makes his living making things look pretty, coming out in the mud and destroying everything, just tearing things up.
I guess mud is his life.
I'll tell you, it is an immaculate piece of equipment. No question, one of the prettiest trucks we've seen on the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Tour this year. You can see the ground crew with the assistance of the gentleman in the white shirt, our national event director, Mr. Jim Harris from the U.S. Hobbit Association, hooking up the kill switch. Now, on this 90-foot distance track, the kill switch will automatically shut the engine down on these machines 1 foot past the finish line.
Just part of the built-in safety features the U.S. Hot Rod Association has.
Moving up on the starting line, let's see what happens. There is no elapsed time mark to beat, as we just saw one of the biggest upsets of the night. Now, a good run for T-Ray. Beautiful pass up and out of the pit, but completely over the qualification cones. And that's going to bring up an interesting situation because the drivers are not allowed to pass the end of the pit. On the replay, a beautiful starting line launch. Very little tire spin to speak of, and the machine just blasting over the surface of the mud just like it's supposed to be done, Shelly.
And he's staying out of the few little ruts that were formed earlier when Shake Me went through there.
That's true, and at 2.63 seconds, locking up the brakes as soon as that engine is shut down. You can see him bouncing out of the pit. A wild shot there. The DNT Jeep of T-Ray takes the #1 spot. Well, Shelly, here is a piece of equipment that I think the fans have really gotten into. A brand new 1989 GMC S15 truck. This is Shane Bach from Mount Sterling, Kentucky. This thing is gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
And a transmission problem that sings the 476 cubic inch Chevy motor in this thing to the moon. The transmission or one of the transfer cases from the front or rear wheel drive unit, it's hard to tell at this point, went away, and that motor just absolutely hit the moon. An easy 10,000 or 11,000 RPM zing. Looking at it again, the machine launched beautifully, but it was never really under power for any length of time at all. Look at the mud sailing. This thing was definitely hooked up, but at 17 feet 8 inches, Shane Bach is not going to stand much of a chance as a winner here tonight in Cincinnati. Well, Shelly, here's the guy they call Lamont. This is Ed Nokus out of Findlay, Ohio, and he considers this his hometown event each and every year. But we've talked a lot about this truck on ESPN's coverage of USHRA Association events before. It's an all-steel 1983 Chevy Blazer body. No fiberglass parts whatsoever. He used to own this thing as a bone stock Blazer. He completely redid it himself. It used to be a street truck, as a matter of fact. And along with that, it's got a small block, 355 cubic inch Chevy engine. That alone is unusual in this class. For steel body trucks in USHRA Association competition. We saw that on ESPN at the Pontiac Silverdome.
Well, you know, it's kind of fun, too, as I was down in the pits talking to Ed, and I asked him if he repainted the car. He says, no, I just spent a lot of time cleaning it.
He does. It's a beautiful truck. Bringing the RPMs up. Hopefully, Ed can get away from his TV jinx here tonight. He always seems to have breakage problems when the ESPN cameras are rolling, and I don't believe it. Problems again. Now, the question is whether or not this pole, or mud rod, I should say, will count. Because under USHRA Association rules, a driver can only go so far before he is committed to that run. And with the ground crew out there taking a measurement, it looks like Nokus is going to be committed to taking this measurement. Boy, just breakage problems left and right for the hitters here at Cincinnati. But coming up next, the defending world champion, USHRA Association hitter Tom Martin in the Mud Patrol 1932 Ford, and we'll be back to see the world champion action right after these messages. Any engine modifications in any chassis, and this is the driver that everybody is here to beat. This is the defending USHRA Association world champion of the Supermodified ranks, Tom Martin, a longtime campaigner out of the small town of Portage, Indiana, not too far from Chicago, Illinois, as a matter of fact, on the shores of Lake Michigan. The driver who won the World Championship in 1988 in the Van Stennis Auto Parts Mud Patrol 1932 Ford. A 540 cubic inch, big block, fuel-injected, alcohol-burning Chevrolet with NOS nitrous oxide injection. A 1,400 horsepower machine that Shelly Herman, you may remember, was also the first vehicle in the 1 second zone in USHRA Association racing.
Oh boy, I remember that. We covered it here on ESPN.
That's right, and indeed you can bet Tom would love nothing more than to crack a number under 2 seconds flat here at Riverfront Coliseum, especially in light of the incredible competition he is facing here tonight. The ground crew making sure the kill switch lines that will shut the engine down right at the finish line are not tangled, and allowing Tom to back up to apparently renegotiate his starting line. Apparently he decided that he wanted to line up a little bit differently.
I don't blame him, because there's some ruts that are forming here that could really cost him some time.
Tom Martin, the defending USHRA Association world champion, lines up. The mark to beat 2.88 seconds by Ed Nokus in the physical therapy Chevy. That is a number well within the range of the Mud Patrol 32 Ford. Clearing out the motor. Tom Martin notorious for the amount of time he takes on the starting line to build up engine temperature. Now he leaves the starting line. Tremendous run. Sideways he gets out of the throttle and still goes through an incredible pass. What a driving job. Shelly, that thing was headed almost out of the pit.
To borrow a phrase from you, unbelievable.
Just fantastic driving. Tremendous driving. And I'll tell you, even though he was out of the throttle at about the 65-foot mark of this 90-foot-long pit, Tom may have still taken over the number 1 spot. On the replay, watch the starting line launch from this incredible machine. Look at that. Front end up. Just absolutely incredible. But already you can see him trying to correct for the machine, pushing to the right-hand side, but now it hooks up and heads right for our cameraman, who indeed keeps focus on those front tires at least for a while. Of course, I'd be pretty thrilled in that position myself. Tom Martin just about mows down the camera, but still goes across. The elapsed time, 2.52 seconds. Shutting off 3/4 of the way down the track, it's still number 1 for the world champion. On the starting line right now, Mark Green from Waukegan, Illinois, in the Mudbuster Jeep CJ. This machine has always been a stormer. 468 cubic inch nitrous oxide injected Chevrolet. It's not supercharged, Shelly, but this machine has one of the best working suspensions in the sport of mud racing.
Well, as we've seen, you don't have to be supercharged to be competitive this evening.
Tremendous pass, and even though Mark Green heads for the outer boundary, he shuts it down well within reach of the safety area. He is not disqualified by crossing the cones. That number, Shelly, I'm almost afraid to think, might have beaten the world champ Tom Martin. on the slow motion launch. Look at the front end of this thing come up. Like I said, one of the best working suspensions. The right front wheel not even on the ground for the first 30 feet. The Lake County four-wheel drive Mack Tools Dixon Automotive Jeep blasts across the finish line. You can see it drifting right there. Watch it throw him around in the cockpit. He actually hits his head against the roll cage a couple of times. The elapsed time, though, 2.39 seconds puts him ahead of Tom Martin, the world champion, and the Mudbuster Chevy from Illinois is number 1. Not bad at all. And a rough finish line. You saw the machine shimmying all over the place, which is interesting because there really aren't any deep ruts out there. But
I saw the driver shimming a lot, too.
He was working in the cockpit, no question about it. That run should have been around 2.7 or 2.8 seconds, which I would certainly think will put him in the top 3 right now. One of our USHRA Association mud racing ESPN shows includes this incredible vehicle and an even more incredible driver, Mike Erdely, the Michigan Terror, and the machine called Mud Shark. And earlier we had a chance to talk to Mike about a brand new power plant this week. Well, the most popular machine in the pit area has once again drawn a less than desirable starting position, but Mike Erdely and the Mud Shark has an extra trick up his sleeve tonight. Mike, a brand new power plant for the infamous Shark should put it right up there with him.
New 509 cubic inch engine. We've run it 2 weekends, and we just bumped the blower up a little more, so we'll have a little bit more horsepower on tap this evening.
Well, even with the extra overdrive in the blower, this is an interesting mud pit in itself. Randy Spraggins of Specialty Tracks has built a very high set of walls on either side of this thing. Is that going to be a problem?
Shouldn't be any problem at all. Generally, that helps out. It helps in the safety factor to keep the vehicles in the pit.
And if I do say so, the Mud Shark is not opposed to using those walls to keep in a straight line.
We'll do what we have to stay in there, generally.
And believe me, he'll keep his foot all the way down when he does it. Well, Erdely, the wild man himself, behind the wheel of, I guess we say it every time, the scariest mud racer there is, the 1964 Corvette called Mud Shark. If you've had a chance to witness this machine on ESPN's coverage of USHRA Association racing in the past, you know what kind of handful this thing is just to keep within the boundary lines of a mud pit.
Well, he's certainly one of the crowd's favorite, and I'm sure there's sponsors that are clamoring to get him as to get their name on the side of his car. He really, really does come through.
One nice thing about being the sponsor of the Mud Shark is that if you put your name on both sides of the car, you get both sides on TV every single time. This machine is always nearly impossible for this man to control, but as we've said before, Erdely has ice water in his hands. He doesn't let anything bother him. A 1,500 horsepower supercharged 510 cubic inch Chevy big block that is some 50 cubic inches larger than any motor he has ever had in this incredible vehicle. The mark to beat, 2.39 seconds. Mark Green in the Mudbuster Jeep is leading this show in a massive upset. Tom Martin, the world champ, is number 2. That leaves the door wide open. Again as Erdely puts down a typical Mud Shark pass, and that might certainly be the number 1 spot. A tremendous pass. It didn't start drifting until right at the finish line. Erdely stops 3 feet from the yellow pylon you see there that marks the disqualification zone if you don't stop in time.
He puts on quite a show, doesn't he? He's shaking a little bit, isn't he?
On the replay, instantly up on the tires. More horsepower than ever before. Look at the front end, not even on the ground. Erdely starts to steer it. Now the work comes in controlling this machine. The rear tires airborne as he crosses the finish line. 2.35 seconds. And that will be number 1 for Mike Erdely in the Mud Shark. That's what he was looking for. The rear-engine short wheelbase machine may look short from a dragster perspective, but as Melvin pointed out, a 140-inch wheelbase is actually longer than most of the vehicles running here. That, combined with a lightweight and a nitrous oxide-injected big block Chevrolet power plant, may give Melvin Brown his fastest ride ever.
That's coupled with the experience that he's had on the circuit before.
Well, you'll remember, Shelly, at Richmond, Virginia, a few months ago, we saw him run 1.95 seconds on an 80-foot pit. That was the quickest run in history for that distance. And this man would love to break the 2-second barrier here. The mark to beat, 2.35 seconds. Mike Erdely in the Mud Shark leads. But at this point, it seems like every one of the hitters is being knocked down a notch by the next man up. Inching forward to stage the machine up on the starting line. Waiting for the signal to plant his right foot. The front end does not work that much on this vehicle. You'll notice a very narrow tread width on the front end. The idea is for the rear engine configuration to plant those rear tires. And there it goes. Wheels up, unbelievable ride. He stays in the pit, and Melvin Brown may have knocked the Mud Shark out of the #1 spot.
Boy, and he did it in a car that seems like it's so low to the ground that it would sink right away, but you called it even before he took off. The back wheels did the whole thing for him.
Let's see how this thing works on the starting line. There you see it. The front wheels go up in the air immediately, but watch. When he hits the nitrous oxide, even with the machine drifting to the outer berm, the front end comes up, and he just keeps his foot planted. Blasting across the finish line, only a foot from being out of bounds, locking up the brakes. 2.28 seconds. #1 for the brand new Red Heat dragster of Melvin Brown. Well, with that kind of for Michigan, believe it or not, a supercharged small block Chevrolet power plant in a 1983 Chevy S10 pickup. The Ground Zero machine uses, of all things, a 2-speed power glide transmission. And Shelly, when you start putting a 2-speed automatic up against a 1,400 horsepower blown small block, you're starting to stress that transmission to its absolute limits.
Yeah, but we've seen here tonight, too, that the motor is one thing, but it's also the experience of the driver. This young man has 2 years' experience behind him. We'll see if that'll help him pull it out. And we also see that the front tires are a bit different than the back.
Tremendous blast. And if he had not shut that motor down at about the 75-foot marker, you can bet Jeff Sturkin in the Ground Zero Chevrolet would have taken the #1 spot. As it is now, that run may have been good for one of the top 3 possessions, but Shelly, I would be surprised. 7 seconds. Good enough right now for 5th. It would have been a lot better if he could have kept it straight and in the throttle. Well, Shelly on the line, another one of the new breed of U.S. Hoffman Association Championship mud racers. You can only see this kind of diversity. Supercharged funny cars, the late model machines, the early bodied entries at U.S. Hoffman Association races. This is Ron Smith, another Michigan racer with the 1948 Fiat Topolino called Gold Fever. The supercharged, fuel-injected 1,500 horsepower Chevrolet, 490 cubic inches. Indeed, an amazing piece of equipment. We had a chance to see the very first mud racing event of the year, a regional program in Salem, Virginia. The machine did amazingly well. The last time we saw it was at Oklahoma City at the U.S. Hoffman Association National Event Trail, where it was unfortunately disqualified for going beyond the stopping boundaries down there past the shutdown area.
That was a real disappointment for him, and we'll see that if he's learned his lesson this evening.
This is an extremely difficult machine to control. Very short wheelbase, a right weight 22. I don't believe my eyes. Completely out of the pit and out of the building. It's a disqualification, but I guarantee that the elapsed time will be one of the most incredible in the history of a 90-foot pit.
The fans are just going crazy, too.
That was an absolute perfect run. It was so perfect that Ron Smith could not shut the machine down in time. And because of safety regulations of which the U.S. Hoffman Association places the utmost importance, he will be disqualified. But the elapsed time has got to be incredible. Look at this replay. Watch this run. Completely straight, up on the berm a little bit at half track. The rear wheels off the ground. He got out of the throttle before the finish line. 2.04 seconds. The second quickest run in the history of a 90-foot pit. Airborne out of the track. It's a disqualification, but man, what a ride.
It's hard to stop when your wheels ain't on the ground.
The Pork Brothers, the infamous Pork Brothers, who have run several trucks in this class. The Pork Brothers Express. Darren Ovington out of Mount Sterling, Kentucky, who campaigns not only in this class, but also has a machine that runs in the Unlimited division that we'll be seeing later on. This is the first time ever in the mud for this immaculate piece of equipment. A fuel-injected, methanol-burning 572 cubic inch Chevy motor, one of the largest cubic inch displacement power plants here tonight. 2,600 pounds, which is kind of heavy in this category. Most of the stronger machines are down around 2,200 and 2,300 pounds, but still an amazing piece of equipment. $65,000 in construction costs. And problems off the starting line. He makes it through the pit, but the machine never had the power that needed to get that starting line launched that has made some of these killers run in the low 2-second zone. That's a tough break, but still an immaculate piece of equipment, Shelly.
I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of this car in the future.
I have a feeling the fans are going to demand it. Express Corvette on its maiden voyage of the Action Association Championship event for mud racers and monster truck campaigners. And indeed, it's all brought to you by Chevrolet Trucks, the heartbeat of America. And Shelly, here is a brand new piece of equipment that everybody is waiting to see. How about this thing, Shelly? A 58 Chevy Corvette, first time with a supercharger in U.S. Hobbit Association competition. A lot of people think this thing is going to be a handful.
This has been quite an exciting night for Chevy. I'm real interested to see how this debut car does.
On the starting line, hooked and ready. New driver of the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Tour, Steve DeLue from Holling, Michigan. Wants to put down a number with the brand new supercharger. It's not going to be enough to take the number one spot. He is within inches of the disqualification mark. But again, the starting line may be getting a little bit sloppy. And in that situation, Shelly, these guys have got to start using their head as to where they line up. Those seconds. Considering the tire speed, that is tremendous. In fact, that'll be good for the number 5 spot right now. Ford Thunderbird. 480 cubic inches of nitrous oxide injected Chevrolet power plant.
A beautiful vintage car to do it in.
Good starting line launch. Excellent run. An amazing pass. And sideways right at the finish line. Stopping markers. Remember, down past the shutdown area, there are boundary markers that indicate a disqualification. You can see the yellow banner right in front of the car. If he had gone another 3 feet, Shelly, it would have been a disqualification. A heck of a job stopping this car.
So he doesn't want to tie that yellow ribbon around his car.
That is an automatic out in this business. You can see the ground crew disconnecting the kill switch. He made a good pass. Like I said, you can get down a pit even with a messy starting line. You just have to know how to do it. You have to know where to line up, when to apply power, how to drive it. But Thompson proves that he knows just exactly what to do. On the replay, instantly up on the tires. Thompson getting off the line perfectly, sticking with it. The machine did bounce around a little bit. As a matter of fact, you can see him trying to steer it straight when it was sideways by the finish line. The elapsed time, 2.57 seconds. A tremendous effort. It'll put him number 5. The fans are ready in history. This is Independence, Missouri's own Clay Langley. What a good run, airborne across the finish line. He'll drive it out of the pit under his own power. Shelly, that machine uses a supercharged small block Chevy engine, a 1932 Austin Phantom Roadster, the winningest driver of all time in this class, 2.93 seconds. That at this point won't even be good for one of the top 5 spots. Number 7, the Iski Camps Nitro Express. Alan Ayers out of New Albany, Indiana, a brand new competitor at the U.S. Hobbit Association National Event Trail, Shelly, with a 69 Jeep CJ called Poco Loco. I'll tell you, he was working that steering wheel in that machine, and I'll tell you, that is also a pretty impressive run. What a debut for that machine. Bud Thompson.
He's got his work cut out for him.
Sinking straight down to the bottom of the pit in this Jeep CJ, but makes it out of the pit under his odds, as we saw earlier in the long shot. Moves it up to the starting line. Beautiful piece of equipment. The green flag comes out. Now the Bud Mouse makes its move. Good straight pass, and again, because has Jeep ready. A tremendous launch, unbelievable wheel stand. He stays in the throttle. What a ride for Chuck Stone.
And what a time for him to do it, too. His whole family's here tonight since he is a local boy.
Tremendous run, unbelievably spectacular for unlimited tractor-tired machines. That is unusual for those machines to pull the front end up like that. The elapsed time for Chuck Stone, 2.97 seconds. And as the first man out here in the unlimited category, that will obviously stand as number 1. Well, the final machine up in the unlimited mud racing category. Here are the grand return for this category to U.S. Hobbit Association's competition. This is the Blue Max of Melvin Brown. Now, a lot of our regular ESPN viewers probably know this is one of the quickest and fastest Supermodified class machines. Originally campaigned by Melvin Brown, he still owns it. It has Paul Thomas behind the wheel tonight. The Ewington, Ohio team has put tractor tires, rice and cane tires actually, on the Supermodified Blue Max and are going to try and put this nitrous oxide Chevy-powered machine into the 2-second zone. The last man with a chance to knock Chuck Stone and the Razzmatazz Jeep out of a number 1 spot and a victory here in front of Chuck's hometown crowd, Shelly.
Well, there's some serious ruts the Blue Max has got to get through, too, but this is all Chevy power, so this machine just...
The ruts created a problem. You called that one dead on, Shelly. Easily, the ruts gave Paul Thomas more of a ride than he ever bargained through of Bill Lucas from Owingsville, Kentucky. at 3.33 seconds, racing category. But coming up, the finale that everybody's been waiting for, the Battle of the Monster Trucks Championship Dash. In the near lane, Jake Heinke from Pennsylvania, the world's only Chevy El Camino monster truck, with, of all things, a supercharged small block Chevrolet engine. Ran the quickest elapsed time in the qualifying round, and Shelly Herman, he's up against one of the toughest trucks ever built.
The big guns of Barefoot. It's nice to see a Chevy off here, isn't it?
Indeed, it will be an interesting battle. The supercharged fuel-injected methanol-burning big block Chevy engine in the new 89 Chevy truck of Jerry Richmond Barefoot against this machine. The incredible Aces High Chevy El Camino. A machine that Jake Heinke, by the way, built himself. Tremendous piece of equipment. Both show quality. Off the starting line, Richmond and Barefoot has the advantage, but here comes Jake Heinke, and that is a side-by-side near-dead heat. We'll have to watch the replay on that one to even begin to tell a winner, Shelly.
That was too close to call.
Well, on the replay here in the final round, you can see the tire spin on the concrete floor that caused Richmond to get in and out of the throttle, but now on the car hit way up in the air. Full throttle trying to get ahead of Aces High, and from our event director, Jim Harris, we get the word that the winner is indeed Jerry Richmond in Barefoot by a matter of inches. On the replay from Jake Heinke's angle, you can see a tremendous starting line launch that gave him what little advantage he had, completely airborne over all the cars, but it was just a matter of inches behind Barefoot, the winner. Now, interestingly, we're receiving word also from our event director, Jim Harris, that Gary Bauer with the Lone Ranger is trying to challenge Jerry Richmond in Barefoot to a grudge match. Even though the final has already been determined, Barefoot has beaten Aces High, but Bauer, the slowest qualifier in the first round, says he wants a shot at Barefoot. And now our event director, Jim Harris, says, okay, bring it out. So we're going to see Barefoot versus Lone Ranger in a Ford versus Chevy showdown that we really didn't even expect to see, Shelly. Off the starting line, first man into the car is Jerry Richmond, and he just barely noses out Gary.